You should be grateful I even chose you. Without me, you're nothing." The words slammed into her like a storm. Maya's fingers froze around the white silk sheet, her chest tight, her throat closing. The morning light poured through the glass walls of his penthouse, too bright, too cruel. Daniel Lee stood before her, tall, composed, his navy blue shirt crisp, every button perfect. But his voice carried a blade. Her lips parted, but no sound came. He looked at her the way a man might look at a mistake he wished he hadn't made. And then, almost casually, he placed the envelope on the bedside table. "For your time," he said. Maya blinked. The words didn't register at first. "For your time." Her breath hitched. Her pulse hammered. "For my what?" she whispered. Daniel sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose, as if she were the one making this complicated. "It's just a gesture. I don't want you to misunderstand last night." Her stomach twisted. "A gesture," she repeated softly. "So, what am I now, Daniel? A service?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The silence said everything. In that silence, she saw him for who he was, not the man who had listened to her stories in the rain, not the one who had laughed when she teased him about his perfect suits, but the billionaire who thought he could buy comfort, even after breaking someone's soul. Her voice trembled. "You don't get to fix this with money. Maya. Don't." Her tone sliced through the air. She got up, her movements sharp, angry, shaking. Her clothes were scattered across the marble floor, her shoes near the grand piano, her blouse draped over the chair where he'd kissed her hours ago. The room that had felt like heaven now felt like a trap. Daniel tried again, softer this time. "That's not what I meant. I didn't think you." She cut him off. "You didn't think, Daniel. That's the problem." Her voice cracked, but her spine stayed straight. "You thought money could erase anything. You thought women came with price tags. You thought wrong." She grabbed her bag and walked toward the door, barefoot, every step echoing across the cold floor. Behind her, Daniel's voice was small, almost pleading. "Maya, wait." But she didn't. She couldn't. She left. Outside, the Seattle rain was falling again, soft, steady, relentless. She stepped into it without an umbrella, without care. The water hit her face, mixed with the tears she refused to let him see. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She didn't check it. She just kept walking. "Hello family, welcome back. Before we continue, let me ask for something small but powerful. Please subscribe. Your support keeps stories like this alive. When you subscribe, you're joining a family that believes in love, healing, and second chances. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love seeing our global family together. Now, let's get back to Maya. By the time she reached her small apartment on Capitol Hill, her body was shaking, from cold, from anger, from heartbreak. She dropped her bag by the door and stood still for a long time, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the quiet drip from the ceiling, the sound of her own breathing. Her reflection caught her in the mirror, wet hair clinging to her cheeks, eyes swollen. She almost didn't recognize herself. "This is not me," she whispered. She stripped off her damp clothes and sank to the floor. The city outside carried on, cars honking, sirens in the distance, rain hitting rooftops. But inside, the silence pressed against her chest. Her phone buzzed again. This time, she checked it. "Tasha, girl, you vanished last night. Did you survive the fancy party or should I send police?" A small, painful laugh escaped her. "Fancy party," she thought. If only she knew. She typed back slowly. "Maya, I'm fine. Just tired. Call you later." She wasn't fine. She was anything but fine. Hours later, night fell over Seattle again. She sat on the couch, wrapped in an old blanket, the sound of rain still whispering against her window. Her mind kept replaying his words. "You should be grateful I even chose you." Every syllable felt like a scar pressed into her skin. She closed her eyes and tried to remember something her mother once told her back home in Inugu. A woman's worth is not measured by who chooses her, but by who she refuses to become. Maya exhaled shakily. "Mama, I hear you." But hearing it and believing it were two different things. The next morning, the world didn't wait for her to heal. Her alarm screamed at 6 a.m. She dragged herself up, pulled on her scrubs, and tied her hair back. Work didn't care about heartbreak. Patients needed her. Children needed her. At the hospital, the halls smelled like disinfectant and fresh coffee. Nurses greeted her with tired smiles. Maya smiled back, pretending her heart wasn't in pieces. Inside her small office, she found a note from one of her young patients, Emma. "Dear Dr. Maya, when I get better, can we go see the Space Needle? I think it looks like a spaceship." She smiled faintly. Hope. Even from a child fighting for her life, hope still existed. She folded the note carefully and slipped it into her pocket. But just as she stepped into the hallway, her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She hesitated. Answered. "Maya." The voice froze her in place. Daniel Lee. She could hear rain on his end of the line, steady and rhythmic, like fate refusing to let them move on. "Don't hang up," he said quietly. "Please." Her jaw tightened. "Why are you calling me?" I owe you an apology." Her grip on the phone trembled. She looked out the hospital window, at the same gray sky that had watched her leave him, and said nothing. "Maya," Daniel said again, voice lower now. "Please. Let me explain." She took a slow breath. Her heartbeat thudded in her ears. He sounded human again. Not the billionaire. Not the man with envelopes. Just a voice filled with something that almost sounded like regret. But she wasn't ready to hear it. "Not yet. Daniel," she said softly. "I have work to do." Then she ended the call. The silence that followed was deafening. That night, as she walked home beneath the drizzle, she replayed it all. The mistake, the insult, the call. She told herself she was done. That she'd never see him again. She told herself she was strong. But deep down, beneath the anger and pride, a tiny voice whispered, "The kind you hate for existing. If he was just another man, why does it still hurt this much?" The rain answered her, soft and endless. And that's where it all began. The night she walked away from a billionaire who thought love had a price. The night he lost her. The night fate started writing its own contract. "No. No, no, no." Maya's voice echoed through the tiny bathroom as she sank to the floor, her knees giving way beneath her. The test strip in her hand trembled. The bold pink lines stared back at her, undeniable, irreversible. She was pregnant. Her heart thudded against her ribs, too fast, too loud. The fluorescent light above flickered, painting her reflection in fragments across the mirror. "This can't be real," she whispered. "Not now. Not with him." The test slipped from her fingers, clattering against the tiled floor. Her breath came shallow, uneven. The room smelled faintly of soap and fear. Hours earlier, everything had seemed normal, or at least, as normal as life could be after walking away from a billionaire who had humiliated her. The hospital had been busy, the corridors full of the usual chaos. She'd smiled at her patients, laughed with the nurses, and pretended the past had been sealed away. Pretended. But then it started, the queasy feeling, the nausea that came in waves so strong she'd barely finished rounds before running to the restroom. Tasha had found her there later, pale and shaken. "Girl, what's going on with you?" Tasha had asked, her voice laced with worry. "I don't know," Maya had lied. But she did know. Deep down, her body already knew. Now, hours later, she sat in her small apartment, the test resting on the coffee table like an accusation. Rain tapped softly against the window. The city lights blurred through the drizzle, colors bleeding into one another. Her hands were cold. Her thoughts louder than the thunder outside. "How did this happen?" she whispered, though she knew exactly how. Her mother's voice from Enugu floated in her mind. "Life doesn't always come the way we plan, my daughter. But when it does, face it with courage." Courage. That word felt heavier than ever. Tasha arrived later that night, banging on the door like the world was ending. When Maya opened, Tasha didn't waste time. "You didn't answer my calls. Are you okay?" Maya hesitated. I need to tell you something." Minutes later, Tasha sat frozen on the couch, her eyes wide, hands gripping the pillow on her lap. "You're what?" "Pregnant." The word hung heavy in the air. Tasha blinked. "As in, Daniel Lee?" Maya nodded, her eyes filling. "There's no one else, Tasha." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Only the hum of the fridge and the faint sound of rain outside broke it. Then Tasha stood, pacing. "That man. The one who, Maya, he paid you. And now, oh Lord." "I know," Maya said quietly. "You think I don't know?" Tasha stopped, looking at her friend's tear-streaked face. The anger in her softened. She sat beside her and pulled her into a hug. Maya trembled. "I didn't plan this. I didn't even want to see him again." "I know, baby," Tasha murmured, rubbing her back. "I know." Maya let herself cry then, not the quiet, controlled tears she'd been holding in for weeks, but the kind that burned. When the sobs finally slowed, she whispered. I can't tell him. Tasha pulled back, frowning. You have to. No. He made it clear what he thinks of me. He'll just think I'm after his money. Tasha sighed deeply. He humiliated you, yes. But this isn't about pride anymore. This is about a child. Maya wiped her face. A child that didn't ask to be born into this mess. They sat in silence. The clock ticked. The rain fell. Days turned into weeks. Maya kept going to work. She smiled, laughed when needed, carried on with quiet dignity. No one at the hospital knew, not even Emma, her little patient who always called her Dr. Maya, the superhero. But every time Maya pressed her stethoscope to a child's chest, she thought of the tiny heartbeat that might already be inside her. The thought terrified her. And yet, it also gave her strength. She wasn't just living for herself anymore. One evening, after an especially long shift, she sat in the hospital cafeteria, exhausted. The soft hum of vending machines filled the silence. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She froze. It can't be him again, she thought. But when she looked, her chest tightened. It was him. Daniel Lee. She let it ring out. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then she turned the phone face down and whispered to herself, No. Not tonight. She gathered her things and walked out, her reflection gliding past the glass walls of the hospital lobby. Outside, Seattle's air was cool, tinged with the smell of wet pavement and distant coffee shops. She stood for a moment under the streetlight, one hand on her stomach. She was not ready to tell him. Not yet. She was not ready to face the man who had broken her heart and unknowingly changed her life forever. That night, Daniel sat alone in his penthouse, the same one she'd stormed out of weeks ago. The same rain tapped the same glass. The same silence filled the space between what he said and what he wished he'd said. Her name lingered on his tongue. Maya. He replayed her face in his mind, the hurt, the fire, the way she'd said don't. And for the first time in years, the billionaire who had everything felt small. He picked up his phone again, hesitated, then typed. Daniel, I know I hurt you. I just want to talk. He stared at the message, thumb hovering over send. Then he deleted it. Not tonight. Not yet. Back in her apartment, Maya whispered to the quiet, I'll be fine. She said it again, louder this time. I'll be fine. But her eyes betrayed her. Because deep down, she knew the truth. Nothing about this was simple anymore. She wasn't just a woman rebuilding her life. She was a mother now, standing at the edge of a storm she couldn't yet see. Hello family. Please don't forget to subscribe. We tell stories to remind each other that pain isn't the end. It's sometimes just the beginning. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and what you think Maya should do next. No. Please, don't faint on me now. The nurse's voice cut through the ward like an alarm. Maya's knees buckled, her vision spinning as she gripped the edge of the counter for balance. The scent of antiseptic and coffee filled the air, but everything felt distant, blurry. She'd been reading to Emma, her favorite little patient, when the dizziness hit again. 1 second she was helping the child draw stars, the next her stomach twisted violently. Dr. Maya, are you okay? Emma's small voice quivered. I just need a second, Maya whispered, forcing a shaky smile. She rushed toward the restroom, pressing a hand over her mouth. Inside, she barely made it before vomiting. The nausea was relentless, cruel. Her hands trembled as she splashed water on her face. In the mirror, she looked pale, the kind of pale that no amount of makeup could hide. This can't go on. Her reflection stared back, silent but accusing. She was supposed to be the strong one, the calm one, the doctor who gave others hope. But now, she was the one breaking quietly in the background. Hours later, she sat in the staff lounge, sipping water, staring at the clock. Every second ticked louder than her thoughts. She was pregnant, and Daniel still didn't know. The thought came like thunder, heavy and sharp. Maya. She turned. Tasha stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her expression torn between concern and frustration. You scared the life out of me, girl. They said you almost collapsed. Maya exhaled. I'm fine, Tasha. You keep saying that, but you're not. Tasha walked over, lowering her voice. You need to slow down. You're working double shifts, skipping meals. That's not how this works. Maya smiled weakly. I don't have much of a choice. You always have a choice. Maya didn't answer. Her gaze drifted to the window where the Seattle drizzle traced lines down the glass. She was thinking of him again. Daniel Lee. No matter how much she tried to bury the memory, it returned, his calm voice, the way he had looked at her before everything fell apart. The betrayal still burned, but beneath it was something she couldn't name. Something that made her chest ache. 3 weeks later, life found a strange rhythm again. Maya had told no one outside Tasha. She worked, rested, ate in small bursts, and prayed quietly at night. Her shifts were her sanctuary. Work meant she didn't have to think. Until one afternoon changed everything. It was raining again, the kind of soft, steady rain Seattle was known for. Maya was helping Emma choose a movie on the hospital tablet when the television in the waiting area flickered to life. Breaking news, the anchor said. Seattle's most eligible bachelor and tech magnate Daniel Lee donates $10 million to fund a new pediatric wing at St. Joseph's Hospital. Emma gasped. Dr. Maya, that's our hospital. Maya froze. The screen showed Daniel standing beside hospital executives, flashing cameras lighting up the scene. He was dressed in a charcoal suit, his expression polite but distant. She swallowed hard. His voice came through the speakers, deep and familiar. This donation is personal. Every child deserves a fighting chance. The room tilted. Personal. Maya turned away, heart pounding. Tasha appeared behind her, whispering, "You okay?" Maya nodded, though her chest felt tight. "His here." Tasha frowned. "What?" "His here. In this hospital." And he was. An hour later, as she stepped into the corridor, she saw him, Daniel Lee, standing near the reception desk, surrounded by cameras and hospital board members. He looked the same, yet not the same. Sharper somehow. More controlled. His dark hair slicked neatly back, his navy tie knotted to perfection. Their eyes met across the hall. Time stopped. Maya's breath caught, her pulse racing. She wanted to turn away, to vanish, but his gaze locked onto hers like gravity. The people around him blurred. The noise faded. He took a slow step toward her. Maya. Her name rolled off his tongue softly, like a prayer or a memory. She froze. Daniel. The crowd noticed. Whispers rippled. Cameras turned. Daniel stopped a few feet away. His face betrayed nothing, not anger, not regret, just quiet intensity. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. Maya's lips trembled. "You already gave me one, remember? The envelope full of it." He flinched, guilt flickering behind his calm mask. "I deserve that." "Deserve," she said bitterly. "That word feels too kind." The air between them thickened. The journalists around them tried to pretend they weren't watching, but every lens was aimed their way. Daniel cleared his throat. "Can we talk? Somewhere private?" Maya hesitated. Every instinct screamed no. But something deeper, the part of her that still needed closure, whispered yes. She nodded once. 5 minutes. They met in the staff garden behind the hospital, a small patch of green between glass buildings. Rain dripped softly from the leaves. Daniel spoke first. "I know I can't undo what I did, but I've thought about that night every single day since." Maya crossed her arms. "You humiliated me, Daniel." "I know. You looked at me like I was something you could buy." "I know," he said again, softer. "And I hate myself for it." She exhaled, eyes glistening. "Then why are you here?" He hesitated. "Because I can't stop thinking about you." Her breath hitched. He continued, his tone breaking slightly. "You were the first person who looked at me like I was human, not a headline. And I ruined that." Maya shook her head. "You can't fix everything with money or apologies." "I'm not here to fix," he said. "I'm here to make it right, in any way I can." She stared at him, rain glistening on her lashes. Part of her wanted to believe him. The other part still remembered the sting of that envelope on the table. Finally, she whispered, "You don't even know what you broke." His brows furrowed. "Then tell me." But she didn't. "Not yet." She turned away. "I have work to do." As she walked off, Daniel called after her, voice low, desperate. "Maya, please. Let me make it up to you." She stopped for a second, just long enough to say, "Some things can't be bought, Mr. Lee." Then she disappeared into the rain. That night, Daniel stood on his balcony, watching the city lights shimmer over Lake Washington. He couldn't shake her voice from his mind. He'd spent years building empires, buying companies, controlling outcomes. But this, her, he couldn't control. For the first time, money felt useless. He whispered to the night, "What do I have to do to earn your forgiveness?" The city didn't answer. Only the rain did, soft, steady, relentless. Meanwhile, across town, Maya sat on her bed, one hand resting on her stomach. She whispered to the silence, "He doesn't even know." Her voice cracked. "You don't even know." Hello family. If you've come this far, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe. Every subscription helps us share stories of strength, love, and redemption across the world. Tell us in the comments, should Maya tell Daniel the truth, or keep her secret a little longer? No, I don't think you understand what I'm offering. Daniel's voice thundered through the cafe, his usual calm cracking like glass. Heads turned, eyes darted, whispers rippled. But Maya didn't flinch. She stood there, steady, holding her ground. She had agreed to meet him only because he'd shown up at the hospital every single day for a week, waiting outside her shift, standing by the parking lot like a ghost who wouldn't leave. Now, inside the quiet corner of Cafe Solstice, rain streaking down the windows, Daniel Lee, the billionaire who had once humiliated her, was offering something she could hardly believe. "Let me get this straight," Maya said slowly. "You want to pay me to pretend to be your girlfriend?" Daniel inhaled, his jaw tight. "Yes, but—" She cut him off, raising a hand. "And you're saying this with a straight face?" His voice softened. "Maya, it's not what you think." "Oh really?" Her laugh came sharp, bitter, "Because it sounds exactly like what I think." He leaned forward, lowering his tone. "There are investors flying in from Seoul. Family-oriented. Traditional. They don't trust single CEOs, especially not in my industry. It's stupid, but it's real. They want stability. So you thought, hey, that Nigerian girl I insulted, she'd be perfect." He winced. "You're right to be angry. I deserve that." "You deserve more than that," she said coldly. "You deserve a mirror." He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, his eyes didn't carry arrogance or power. They carried something else. Guilt. Regret. Need. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he said quietly. "I'm asking for a chance to do something right, even if it's just business." Maya folded her arms, staring him down. "So, this is your big solution? Money?" Daniel exhaled. "No. It's a contract. You'll be treated with respect. I'll pay well." She blinked. 10 million. He nodded. 3 months. Strictly professional. No expectations. The cafe grew silent around them. The soft hum of jazz filled the background, blending with the faint drizzle outside. Maya looked at him, torn between anger and disbelief. "You're unbelievable." He leaned closer, his tone dropping to something sincere, almost fragile. "I chose you because I trust you, Maya. I've met people who pretend for cameras, people who wear masks every day. But you're real." She scoffed. "Real enough for a price tag." He didn't answer. For a long moment, they just sat there, two worlds colliding, again. When Maya left the cafe, the air outside felt heavier. The rain had eased, but her thoughts hadn't. She walked fast, her umbrella swinging at her side. 10 million. The number kept replaying in her head. 10 million could clear her student loans. 10 million could pay for her mother's hospital bills back home in Enugu. 10 million could give her unborn child a future she couldn't yet imagine. But pride whispered louder. "Don't do it, Maya. Don't sell yourself again." She reached the bus stop, her reflection glimmering faintly in the puddle beneath her feet. Her breath fogged the air. She could almost hear her mother's voice again. "Sometimes, God sends the same test twice, just to see if you've learned." Maya closed her eyes. "Then let me not fail this time." That night, Daniel sat in his office overlooking Lake Union, staring at his phone. He'd rehearsed the conversation in his head all day, how he'd explain the deal, how he'd convince her it wasn't manipulation. But seeing her again had shaken him more than he'd admit. He couldn't forget the way she'd looked at him, strong, defiant, untouchable. "She's not like the others," he murmured. His assistant, Mr. Han, entered quietly. "Sir, the board is expecting your final list of attendees for the Seoul Summit." Daniel nodded absently. "I'll have it by morning." "Will Ms. Okafor be joining you?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "If she says yes." Back in her apartment, Maya sat on the edge of her bed, the contract email open on her laptop. The terms were clear, almost clinical: confidentiality, public appearances, compensation, and duration, 3 months. Her cursor hovered over the reply button for what felt like hours. Finally, she typed just 2 words. "I'll think." She didn't send it. Not yet. She looked around her small apartment, the flickering light bulb, the cracked wall, the pile of unpaid bills. Then her eyes drifted to the small ultrasound photo she'd hidden inside a notebook. The image was faint, but unmistakable. A life. A heartbeat. She pressed the page to her chest. She wasn't doing this for herself anymore. 2 days later, she found herself standing in front of a sleek black sedan parked outside the hospital. The driver stepped out and bowed slightly. "Miss Okafor." Maya hesitated. "Yes. Mr. Lee asked me to take you to the fitting appointment." She blinked. "The what?" "Boutique downtown. He said to tell you, no pressure, just come see." She wanted to refuse. She should have, but she didn't. Inside the car, she watched the city glide past, the rain-streaked windows, the neon reflections, the cam of Seattle at dusk. Her heart pounded, not from fear but from the strange weight of what she was about to do. When they arrived at the boutique, she stepped out and gasped. Rows of dresses shimmered under soft golden light. Designers she'd only read about were waiting with polite smiles. Daniel stood at the far end, adjusting his cufflinks. Navy suit. Gold watch. The same calm he wore like armor. "You came," he said quietly. "I didn't say yes," she replied. "I know." His lips curved faintly. "But you came anyway." As the attendants brought fabrics and colors, Maya tried to steady her breath. Silk brushed her skin. Mirrors caught her reflection from every angle, each version of her staring back with a different question. Daniel watched, silent, as she tried on a navy blue dress. It fit perfectly, elegant and simple. For a moment, their eyes met in the mirror. "You look incredible," he said softly. Maya looked away. "This is all temporary, Daniel. Don't forget that." He nodded. "I won't." But deep down, he already knew. Nothing about her ever felt temporary. That night, Maya signed the contract. Her hands shook as she pressed her pen to paper, but her resolve didn't. She wasn't doing it for him. She wasn't doing it for money. She was doing it for survival. And as she handed the document to Mr. Han the next morning, she whispered to herself. She was not broken. She was building. "Keep smiling, Maya. Don't let them see you're nervous." Daniel's voice was calm, almost rehearsed, the tone of a man who had lived his whole life under flashing lights. His hand rested lightly on the small of her back as they walked into the grand hall of the Seattle Art Museum. Cameras clicked, murmurs rippled, and heads turned like flowers chasing the sun. But Maya, she felt like her heart was on a roller coaster she never bought a ticket for. Her emerald dress shimmered under the chandeliers, every step echoing against marble floors. The air smelled of expensive perfume and old wine. Around them were people who lived in another world, tech giants, foreign investors, women in glittering gowns, men in tailored suits. To them, she wasn't Maya Okafor, the girl from Enugu who worked double shifts in pediatrics. She was Daniel Lee's mysterious girlfriend. A role. A mask. A lie. She smiled anyway. The event was a charity gala, the first of many under the contract. Cameras followed their every move. The press whispered stories. Who is she? Where did he find her? Daniel leaned close to her ear and murmured, "You're doing great." "Does great mean pretending not to suffocate?" she whispered back. He chuckled under his breath. "Exactly." They took their seats at the long banquet table, where conversation floated like smoke, shallow, polite, perfectly meaningless. Maya focused on her breathing, her posture, her glass of water, but her stomach was turning. The dizziness came again, faint at first, then stronger. She excused herself quickly, clutching her purse as she hurried toward the restroom. Behind her, Daniel's smile faltered. Inside the restroom, Maya gripped the sink and took slow breaths. The mirror reflected a woman fighting to stay composed. Her skin was pale, her palms clammy. "Please, not here," she whispered to herself. The nausea hit hard. She barely made it to a stall before throwing up. Her body trembled, her mind spinning with exhaustion and panic. When she finally came out, she rinsed her face and dabbed her cheeks dry. The reflection staring back at her looked tired, older somehow. She whispered to herself, "You're fine. You're strong. You can do this." She was lying, but it helped. When she returned to the hall, Daniel was waiting near the entrance, worry creasing his normally composed face. He stepped toward her immediately. "Maya, what happened?" "Just dizzy," she said quickly. "Too much perfume in there." He studied her for a moment. His eyes softened. "You look pale. Let's go." "I'm fine, Daniel." He shook his head. "You signed a contract, remember? I'm responsible for your well-being now." She frowned but didn't argue. The look in his eyes wasn't arrogance anymore, it was concern. Real concern. They left the gala quietly. Outside, the night air was cool, the rain soft and rhythmic. The black sedan waited by the curb. The ride was silent at first. City lights blurred through the tinted windows, painting shadows across their faces. Finally, Daniel spoke. "You've been sick more than once lately. Don't tell me it's just perfume." She stiffened. "It's nothing." He turned to her, his voice firmer. "Maya, you can't hide this from me. If you're unwell, I need to know." Her throat tightened. The truth hovered on her lips, heavy and dangerous. But she wasn't ready. "Not tonight." "I said it's nothing, Daniel," she said quietly, turning toward the window. The reflection of the city lights danced across her tears. When they reached his villa by Lake Washington, Daniel walked her inside without a word. The house smelled faintly of cedar and rain. Everything was neat, quiet, cold, just like him. "You should rest," he said softly. "I'll have Mr. Hand send your dress for cleaning." Maya nodded. "Thank you." She started toward the guest room, but his voice stopped her. "Maya." She turned. He hesitated, searching her face. "You did well tonight. Better than anyone else could have." Her lips parted slightly. She hadn't expected that. "Thank you." Their eyes met, and for a brief, fragile second, the distance between them felt smaller. Then she looked away. "Good night, Daniel." He watched her disappear down the hallway. For a long time, he didn't move. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay on the soft sheets of the guest room, listening to the rain whisper against the glass. Her hand rested on her stomach. The secret she carried felt heavier with every passing day. How long before he finds out? She sighed. The ceiling blurred through her tears. She thought about her mother, about Inugu, about the little girl she used to be, the one who believed life would be simple if you just worked hard and stayed kind. She was learning now, love was not simple. Life was not fair, but she was still standing. Down the hall, Daniel sat alone in his study, staring out at the lake. His mind was loud, with guilt, with memories, with things left unsaid. He'd watched her tonight, seen how she held herself with quiet dignity even when she clearly didn't belong among his world's polished cruelty. He couldn't explain it, but every moment around her made him feel something he hadn't felt in years, human. He whispered to the empty room, "What are you hiding from me, Maya?" The night didn't answer. Only the sound of rain filled the silence, steady and endless. Morning came too soon. The scent of coffee drifted through the villa. Maya woke early, trying to shake off the heaviness in her chest. She walked into the kitchen to find Daniel already there, sleeves rolled up, tie missing, making coffee himself. "Good morning," he said quietly. She blinked. "You make coffee?" He smiled faintly. "Sometimes. It reminds me I'm still human." Maya almost laughed. Almost. He handed her a mug. Their fingers brushed, and something warm flickered between them. She looked away quickly. "Thank you." He nodded. "We have another event tonight. Are you up for it?" She hesitated, then nodded. "I'll manage." His eyes lingered on her, concerned, searching. But he didn't push. Not yet. That night, as the rain began again over the lake, both of them stood in separate rooms, thinking the same thing, feeling the same pull. This contract was supposed to be business. But something had changed. And neither of them could stop it. "No, Daniel, stop, please." Maya's voice cracked, trembling as she stumbled backward into the living room wall. Her hands were shaking. Her chest heaved. Daniel stood before her, his face pale, his eyes filled with shock. The silence between them was suffocating, like the air itself didn't know how to move. Moments ago, everything had seemed almost normal. They'd just returned from another charity gala, the flash of cameras still echoing in their minds. She'd nearly fainted halfway through the event, and he had carried her out before anyone could ask questions. But now they were standing in the middle of his villa, and the truth was no longer something she could hide. He had seen the test kit in her purse. And now, he was standing there, staring at her like the world had just tilted off its axis. "Maya," he said slowly, his voice low, careful, almost afraid. "Tell me I'm wrong." Her throat felt dry. "Daniel, please. Tell me it's not true." Tears welled in her eyes. She pressed a trembling hand to her stomach, as if to shield it. "I can't." His breath hitched. His eyes closed for a long, tense moment. When they opened again, something had broken inside them. "Pregnant," he whispered. "You're pregnant." Maya nodded weakly, her whole body trembling. Yes. He took a step closer. How long? Almost 3 months. His voice cracked. 3 months. That means. It's yours, Daniel. Silence. The word yours hit like thunder. Daniel turned away, pacing toward the glass wall that overlooked the lake. His reflection was a blur against the rain. Why didn't you tell me? Maya's voice broke. Because you made me feel like I was nothing, Daniel. The morning after, you left money on the table. You treated me like I was for sale. He flinched hard. Her words cut deep. She continued, her tears finally spilling. You think I wanted to see you again after that? You think I wanted any of this? He ran a hand through his hair, his composure shattering. I was stupid. I was arrogant. I thought. You thought I was like everyone else, she finished bitterly. A girl chasing your money. He turned to face her, eyes glistening. I didn't think, Maya. That's the problem. I didn't think at all. For a moment, they just stood there, two people bound by a mistake that was no longer just theirs. Maya sank onto the couch, her hands trembling over her stomach. I didn't plan to tell you. I was ready to raise this baby alone. Daniel's voice softened. Don't say that. Why not? She shot back, her tone shaking. You wouldn't have cared. His jaw tightened. You don't get to decide that. Then where were you when I needed someone to care? That silenced him. Completely. The rain outside grew heavier, tapping against the glass like an impatient heartbeat. He walked closer, his voice breaking with something raw. You're right. I failed you. I hurt you. But this life you're carrying, it's ours, Maya. Not just yours. She looked up at him, startled. What are you saying? He knelt in front of her, his voice steady but trembling. I'm saying I want to be here. I'm saying I'm not running away. I don't care about contracts, or image, or any of that nonsense anymore. I care about you, and our child. Maya's breath caught. His eyes were filled with sincerity, no arrogance, no distance, no billionaire mask. Just a man stripped down to regret and love. You don't have to say that, she whispered. I'm not saying it because I have to. He placed his hand gently over hers, where it rested on her belly. I'm saying it because I should have said it the first night I met you. Her tears fell silently. She didn't pull away. He exhaled shakily. I was wrong, Maya. I was wrong about everything, about love, about pride, about what I thought mattered. You've been the only real thing in my life for a long time. Maya's voice came out barely above a whisper. Daniel, you don't know what you're asking for. Yes, I do, he said softly. I'm asking for a chance to do right by you. The moment hung in the air, fragile, trembling, sacred. When Daniel reached for her, it wasn't out of desire or desperation. It was out of remorse. His fingers brushed her cheek, wiping away the tears he had caused. She didn't move, didn't speak, didn't know what to do with the tenderness that felt both foreign and familiar. Why now? She asked quietly. He smiled faintly, his voice hoarse. Because for the first time in my life, I'm not afraid of losing everything, except you. Maya closed her eyes. The rain slowed outside, the wind softening. For the first time in months, she let herself breathe. Later that night, she sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the flicker of the city lights across the lake. Daniel sat opposite her, silent, hands clasped. They didn't know what tomorrow would bring. They didn't know how the world would see them, a Korean billionaire and a Nigerian doctor with a baby on the way. But in that quiet moment, none of it mattered. He looked at her and said softly, Whatever happens next, Maya, I'm here. She turned to him, eyes tired but softer now. You can't fix everything with words, Daniel. He nodded. Then I'll fix it with actions. The rain had stopped. Seattle's skyline shimmered like 1,000 stars trapped in glass, the lake outside Daniel's villa still and silent. Inside, soft music played from the living room, a slow instrumental that drifted through the air like forgiveness itself. Maya stood by the window, one hand resting lightly on her belly. The faintest bump showed now, a quiet reminder that her life would never be the same. Behind her, Daniel was in the kitchen. Not with his usual poise or precision, but with sleeves rolled up, apron slightly crooked, and a mess of ingredients scattered across the marble counter. He had been at it for an hour. Maya turned slightly. You're going to burn that rice. He glanced up, flustered. No, I'm not. Yes, you are, she said, hiding a smile. That smell is not confidence, Daniel. It's smoke. He looked down at the pot, frowned, and reached for the spatula a second too late. She burst into quiet laughter, genuine, unrestrained. It filled the room, the kind of laughter that didn't need an apology. He froze for a moment, then smiled. "You're laughing at me." "I'm laughing with you," she said, still giggling. "Even though you're terrible at cooking." Dinner was a beautiful disaster, the rice a little too salty, the stew a bit too thick. But to Maya, it tasted like peace. They sat across from each other at the dining table, candles flickering between them. No cameras. No contracts. No walls. Just them. For the first time, Daniel didn't look like a CEO. He looked human, tired, imperfect, but trying. Maya noticed the small details she had never paid attention to before. The faint scar on his wrist, the way his voice softened when he said her name, the quiet way he watched her as if making sure she was still real. When they finished eating, he rose without a word, walked to the grand piano by the window, and sat down. "I didn't know you played," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "Not often. Only when words aren't enough." Then he began to play, a gentle, haunting melody that filled the villa with warmth. Maya closed her eyes. The sound was tender and searching, like an apology wrapped in music. When he stopped, she whispered, "Daniel, why are you doing all this?" He stood, walked toward her, and said quietly, "Because I need you to know I'm not the same man who left money on that table." She looked at him, really looked. His eyes were no longer cold. His tone no longer controlled. "People don't change overnight, Daniel," she said carefully. "I didn't," he replied. "I changed the moment I realized what I almost lost." She swallowed hard. "And what's that?" He stepped closer, stopping just in front of her. "You." Maya's heart thudded. She wanted to look away, but his gaze held her there, unflinching, honest. "I used to think love was a weakness," he continued. "That showing emotion made me small. But then you came, this Nigerian woman who walked into my life and refused to be impressed by my money, my power, my name." He smiled faintly. "You didn't fall for Daniel Lee, the billionaire. You made him fall for you." Her breath caught. He reached into his pocket, then slowly knelt down on one knee. "Daniel," she whispered, stunned. He opened a small velvet box. Inside was a simple ring, silver, elegant, not loud or showy. "Maya Okafor," he said softly, his voice trembling. "You've given me something I didn't think I deserved, a second chance. You've made me see what real strength looks like. You've carried grace through humiliation, dignity through heartbreak, and love through pain." Her tears began to fall. He took a deep breath. "I want to spend the rest of my life making up for what I did wrong. Will you marry me?" Maya stood frozen, her mind spinning. All the moments came rushing back. The night in the lounge, the envelope on the table, the long walks to the hospital, the rain, the apology, the confession. She had sworn she'd never trust him again. But here he was, not asking for perfection, just a chance. Slowly, she reached out and touched his face. "Daniel." He looked up, waiting. She smiled through her tears. "Yes." His breath hitched, and then he stood, pulling her into his arms. The ring slipped perfectly onto her finger. Outside, the wind stirred the surface of Lake Washington, and the moon broke through the clouds, casting silver light through the glass. For the first time, neither of them felt like they were pretending. Later that night, they stood on the terrace together, wrapped in a blanket, the cool air brushing against their faces. Daniel whispered, "I used to think I owned the world. Now I know I was empty." Maya leaned her head on his shoulder. "And now?" He smiled. "Now I have everything that matters." She chuckled softly. "You mean me and a baby who kicks every time you talk too loud?" He laughed quietly. "Exactly that." They stood in silence, watching the reflection of city lights ripple across the lake. She whispered, almost to herself, "I never thought I'd find home this far from home." He tightened his arm around her. "You didn't find it, Maya. You built it."